morning all of you. We will continue with the history chapter, World During Modern Age, and today we will start from page number 10, the American Revolution. Yesterday the last topic that we did was the consequences of the industrial revolution. So we have seen that what were the results, the consequences of the industrial revolution. Now let's move on to the American Revolution. Now in the later half, the second half of the 18th century, there were revolutions in America and France, but these revolutions were different from the industrial revolution. Now these revolutions, means the American and the French revolutions, they were political revolutions, means these revolutions were there to bring about a change in the governance of the country, in the way the country was run and governed. And so through these political revolutions, means the American and the French revolutions, people wanted to stand up for their rights. They wanted to stand up for their rights against exploitation, and they wanted to change the system of government. System of government in most of these countries was absolute monarchy. And so now, absolute monarchy means that the ruler, the king or the queen, they have absolute control over the people, and they could rule as per their wishes. There were no set of written laws or a constitution to limit their powers. They could rule as per their wishes. And then America uh, all was also a colony of the British, and so they wanted freedom from the colonial rule. And so both the places, what happened, the people, they wanted to stand up for their rights, and they wanted the exploitation that they were suffering to end, and they wanted to change the system of government, and they wanted to set up democratic governments in their countries, democratic governments that would provide them freedom and equality before law for all. Okay, what is a democratic government? What is democracy, by the way? Yes, class 8, democracy. Yes, class, come on. You don't know what is democracy?
Ma'am, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
All right. Yes. Okay, so what is democracy? It is rule of people, all right? Where people rule, where people, they
Yes,
choose their own representatives. People have the voting right, people have certain freedoms. So these countries, they also wanted that democratic governments should be set up in their countries, and they should be provided with certain rights, like with the right to freedom and equality and so on. Now once the continent of America, it was discovered, so the Europeans, they came and settled in different parts of America, and the French, they settled in the north, that is in Canada, the Spanish in the central part, and the British in the eastern part of America. And what these settlers did, they drove away the native red Indians living there, and the Britishers, they settled in the 13 colonies. So the British, they had 13 American colonies, and what happened, they went there, they settled there, and drove the people, the native people living there. And then these Britishers, they settled in 13 colonies. The British government, they were able to rule over these people, uh, and with the help of the British governors. So British governors were sent to these places, and so they were able to rule over these places with the help of their governors. And these governors, they did not care much for the welfare of the native people. The people who were living there, they did not care much about them. They simply cared about themselves. They simply wanted to increase their profit, that's all. And so new taxes were imposed one after the other, and this went on. No welfare was provided to the people, the native people. And so the people, they protested, and they felt that since the British government did not have any representative from the colonies, so it had no right to tax them. And the people, they thought that since they did not have any representative, their representative in the British Parliament. So the British Parliament also do not have any right to put taxes on them, and so they raised the slogan, no taxation without representation. Okay. Now, by the 19th century, the writings of we have some English and French philosophers like Thomas Paine, Voltaire, Rousseau, Montesquieu. They come up with their own ideas and their philosophies, and these philosophies, they made the people conscious of their rights, and they were now determined that they will have their rights no matter what. And so what happened, the people, they were inspired and motivated by the writings of these philosophers and all. And like Rousseau, he wrote that there should be a social contract between the people and the government, and the people, they should be consulted as to who would rule over them. Montesquieu came up with the separation of powers, that power should not be concentrated in one hand. Voltaire, he wrote about that people, they should have freedom of religion also. Different philosophers, they came up with their views, and they inspired the people that people should stand up, and that they should have their rights. And so what happened, that when a new tax was imposed, in spite of the protest, means in spite of the protest of the people, a new tax was imposed. So some colonists, what they did, they disguised as red Indians, and they disguised themselves as red Indians, and they entered a ship in the Boston harbor. And then there were huge chests of tea, which were there to be sent to Europe. And so what they did, they threw these chests of tea into the sea, and this incident is known as the Boston Tea Party. But the government in England, they did not pay any heed to the protest made by the settlers. So here the British government, they were not doing anything for the welfare of the native also, as well as for the settlers. By settlers, what do we mean? That we, when we read this, we said that many people, the Europeans, they came and settled in different parts of Europe. So now they were already living there, they were settled there. So they were the settlers, and then we also had the natives, red Indians. So what these settlers did, they drove the red Indians away and they settled there. But the British government now, they were ruling over these settlers also, and over the native people also, and they did not do much for the welfare of the people. So the settlers also, though once they were living in Europe, but now because they were here and they were under the control of the British governors. And so the that is why when taxes were imposed on them one after the other, so they protested. And because of that, when they heard that more taxes were to be imposed, so what they did, some of these colonists, they disguised themselves as red Indians. They came to this harbor, Boston harbor, and threw these huge boxes, huge chests of tea into the sea. And so even after all this, the government in England, they did not pay any heed, they did not pay any attention to the protests that were made by the settlers there. And so wars and conflicts and revolts started between the British army and the people who were living there. And finally, on 4th of July 1776, the people of the 13 colonies, they declared themselves independent. And the Declaration of Independence, it was framed by Thomas Jefferson. And this Declaration of Independence, now it is declared, it is a very important document, because it states that every individual who is oppressed, that individual has the right to free himself. Means he could do anything, he could protest, and he could do anything to free himself. So this document declared that every individual, they enjoy the same right to free himself from oppressive rule. So all individuals, they have the right to free themselves if they are oppressed. Now the British government, they tried to suppress this revolution. but inspired by these new ideals coming from these philosophers and reformers, the colonists, they fought without fear, undaunted, fearless. They fought and finally gained their independence from the British rule. So the 13 American colonies, they joined together to form the United States of America. And when this new country was formed, so a new constitution was written, including, and under this new constitution they also had a section which was called as the Bill of Rights, means the rights which were given to the people of this newly constructed country. And this was the first constitution in the world to guarantee the people, the citizens, freedom of speech, freedom of thought and expression, and the equality to all its citizens. And this American Revolution is also known as the American War of Independence. Now this had a great impact on all the people who were oppressed throughout the world. So these people, they were under the control of the colonial powers, and they fought with courage, without fear, and finally they were able to get independence. And so this inspired the rest of the people, also those who were under the oppressive rule, and or those who wanted changes in their form of government. So elsewhere in the world also people were inspired because of this. Okay, so the same thing happened in France also. So let's move on to the French Revolution. Now people were inspired by the success of the American Revolution, and so the French, they also revolted against the absolute monarchy in France. So here, though they were not under the control of any other power, any other country, but here the people in France, they revolted against the absolute monarchy. Like I told you, absolute monarchy, where the king power is not limited by any written laws or by a constitution, and he is free to do as he wish. Okay, so here the people, they revolted against absolute monarchy. Now the system of society in France was such that it was divided into three estates. All right, the first estate, the second and the third estate. The first estate, it comprised of the officials of the church. The second, the nobility, means the ruling classes, and the third were the commoners. Like in India also, under the caste system, people were divided into how many castes? Yes, class 8. We had the caste system prevalent in India.
Ma'am, four.
Yes, which were the four castes? Name them.
Kshatriya, Brahmin.
Yes, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, then
Kshatriya, Shudras.
okay, Vaishya and Shudras. So in that particular order, means Brahmins on the top, then came the Kshatriyas, the warrior class. Then we have the Vaishyas, who were the traders and all, and then the Shudras. So here also, what happened, the people of the higher caste, they oppressed, exploited the people of the lower caste. Now that was the same case throughout the world. And so, the condition of the people of the third estate in France, it was very bad. All right, and why? Because the people of the first estate and the second estate, they did not have to pay any taxes. This privilege they got by birth, means anyone who was born in the first estate or the second estate, they did not have to pay any taxes. Only the people who belong to the third estate. Now mostly what happened, obviously some traders, merchants and all were there, but mostly the third estate, it comprised of the poor people, the peasants, the workers, the artisans, all right, the skilled laborers. And so these people were poor people, most of them were poor, and now all the burden of taxes were borne by the people of the third estate. And see, that is what is written, that the entire burden of administration, government expenditure, with the taxes we give to the government, services are provided back to the people. So the burden of all this was borne by the people of the third estate or the common people. And with the Industrial Revolution, the middle class, a strong middle class, it emerged. And this class, it comprised of big businessmen, merchants, traders, those who have made a lot of money through the flourishing trade. And then we also had the educated classes among these middle classes, means the lawyers, the professors, teachers and all. So this all comprised the middle class. So a strong middle class, it emerged in France, and so they led the people to fight for their rights, because this middle class, they were opposed that the privileges should be based on birth. They said that privileges should not be based on birth, but privileges should be based on a merit of a person. And so these people were also inspired by philosophers like Rousseau, Voltaire and Montesquieu. And so, like I told you, that Rousseau, he said that the government should be formed by the consent of the people. Means if I am to be governed, that I should also have a say in who will rule over me. And at that time the church, it also had a lot of control over the people. And so Voltaire, he wrote about the freedom of religion, and that the church, they should not have so much control over the people. Really, religion should be separate from the church and all. And religion should be separate from the governing of the state. Then Montesquieu, he said that there should be division of power. All power should not be concentrated in one hand. So there should be a distribution among the legislature, the executive and judiciary, just like what we follow now. Okay. And so these people, the philosophers, the people of the middle classes, they were inspired by the writings of the philosophers and all. And so they stood up, challenged the French monarchy, and they encouraged the people to think for themselves, to think for their rights, and to stand up for their rights. And so uh, in July 1789, the French people, they rose in revolt, and their representatives, means the representatives of the Third Estate, they declared their body to be National Assembly. And then they broke the state prison Bastille on July 14, 1789. And here they were also, the revolters were also joined in by the prisoners. And this uh, process, which starts from the storming of the Bastille. And after what happened there, now this symbolized the fall of monarchy there, and the victory of the people. And the National Assembly, thereafter they adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. Now according to this declaration of, so they had a new constitution, and this new constitution started with the Declaration of the Rights of Man and Citizen. And under this, they granted various rights to the people of France, and hence France was declared a republic. Okay, what is a republic? Class 8, what is a republic? Yes, anyone here? What is a republic? India is a republic, right? So what is a republic? Come on, class 8.
A country that has elected government.
Alright, means somewhat okay. So what is republic? Where the head of the country is a elected person and not a hereditary ruler. And so France was declared a republic, because earlier it was an absolute monarchy, but now it would be a republic. Means the head of the country would be an elected person and not a hereditary ruler. And after that, the property of the nobles and of the church, it was confiscated, and it was distributed among the common people. And the king and queen of France, they were imprisoned, they were tried on charges of treason. What is treason? Treason. Does anyone know what is the meaning of treason? Yes? Alright. Treason is betraying your own country. So these people, the King Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette, they were tried, they were imprisoned, they were tried on the charges of treason, and finally they were executed, means they were killed. And the ideals that we get from the French Revolution are the ideals of liberty, means freedom, equality and fraternity among people, and these became the guiding principles of the people of France. So this was the French Revolution. Now we come to another topic here, another important event in the modern period, and that is the growth of nationalism. Now this growth of nationalism, was a very important development in 19th century. Okay, you tell me, what do you understand by the term nationalism? Yes, nationalism. Come on, class. If this whole uh, study process is just one way, it will not make much difference. So it has to be both ways, like both me and you all together, we have to learn. So, like, if you are not participating in the process, then not much learning would be there. So, nationalism. Anyone here? Okay. Now let's see. Now nationalism basically is not a small concept. It is a broad concept, and now what it basically means that the people who live in a particular territory, who belong to or who have the same race, same they share same history, they share a same culture, and maybe they may speak the same language, all right, and the people living under one geographical boundary, considering themselves as one people, sharing, having a feeling of unity and oneness towards their country, and this they feel that they belong to one nation, one country. So having a feeling of unity, all right, unity and oneness with the people, okay, and with the country where you live in under one defined geographical boundary. So the people and having the same race or same ethnicity means you have the same you come from the same descent, and you share the same history, you share same culture, you might be speaking same language, all right. So people living like this, having feeling of oneness and unity, and so they feel that they belong to one nation because they have so much in common, say they belong to one nation, and this feeling of oneness and unity, now this is called as nationalism. Now, by the 19th century, feudalism, it has ended in most parts of Europe. Now, yesterday we did what feudalism was, and so by 19th century feudalism, it has already ended, and now there was also a growth of trade, and there was development of towns and cities, and people who were living in these towns and cities, they were inspired by this because education, it spread, learning spread, and there were so many ideas coming in from different philosophers and all, and so people they were inspired and they were influenced. Then rich merchants, what they did, they supported the strong rulers who protected them. So merchants and all, those who have made a lot of money, and now they supported those rulers who in turn helped the merchants to trade well and to improve and their trade. And so these rich merchants, they supported those strong rulers who protected the merchants and who brought out laws in their favor. Now people sharing the same economic and cultural background, they united under their own rulers. So people, who have the same cultural background, same economic background, they united under their own ruler, and so new nation states were formed. And new nation states were formed on national unity. Now they were set up and they were called as nation states. Now nation state, what would that be in easy terms? A country, where you have a properly defined geographical boundary, people living there be bound by some like common descent or history or language and all. So people feeling like that and uniting under their leader or ruler, and the whole country being one, people having that oneness and unity. And so then such nation states were formed, and in many areas people were divided. So like Italy, as you know of now, or even Germany, they were not united countries. Like Germany, you will study more about this in class 10th. It was a confederacy of 39 different states, and like Italy, it comprised of 7 states, and in the different parts of different states of Italy, different kings and different rulers, different dynasties were ruling. And so, where what happened that thus in Italy, Germany, Poland, Greece, people, they launched movements to remove the foreign rulers who were coming, foreign rulers, dynasties who were there and who were ruling over them. And so, they launched these movements to remove these foreign rulers. And so finally, these people, these countries were able to set up governments under their own rulers, and you will study about them in class 10. So, now a strong sense of nationalism and loyalty to a national ruler was now possible. Like earlier, if you take example for India, India was divided into so many different kingdoms, and we had the northern kingdom, southern kingdom, and so many different rulers and dynasties were ruling in India at the same time. So though all the people were living under one defined geographical boundary, India, but people, they did not have any sense of unity or oneness with the other people living them. Most of the time they were, on the other hand, fighting with each other to increase their land and resources. But when all the people they came together and they united, all right, and so what happened then, this feeling of nationalism and loyalty to a ruler was possible. Just like in India, when the people, they were oppressed under the British rule. So, that was the first thing that brought the people together, and they started to have this feeling of oneness and unity towards the people who lived here, and so that they can come together and fight against the British rule. And so these successes means the successes of these nations, that they were able to unite their countries under one ruler. Now it inspired the other nations also to unite and fight for their independence in the other parts of the world also. Okay, so have you been able to understand what we did today?
Yes,
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
it clear to all of
yes,
you?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.